It's built the same way. And they can charge the full MSRP and there's 15, it's marketed down 15, 20%. Yeah. So I told him,
I'm telling you, you don't see. John asked how much you remember the days, right? It's like 105. Remember that? Did he see that word?
already. I'm sure we could. You know, do the impound. Shooting like runs screaming down the road. Just to the rest. That's what I thought. How do you like it working local? Well, I mean, you're back to see your car. I thought you went like local. Yeah. Never mind. I was today. So, what about that other outfit? What's going on with that? Which one? The one you were like down in Utah. Yeah. No, I'm just curious where they are. Where are they today? Yeah, as far as the business is growing, I guess it's okay. All of us are.
Yeah, that's an access easement. City can access.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Belton City Council meeting, Tuesday, September 28, 2021. Glad to have everyone. It's great to see a good crowd here today. Today's meeting, the Pledge of Allegiance, will be led by Councilmember John R. Holmes Sr. The pledge to the Texas flag will be led by Executive Director of the Belton Economic Development Corporation, Cynthia Hernandez. And the invocation will be given by Councilmember Craig Pearson.
Please join in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Join me in prayer, please. Father God, we come to you in Jesus' name. It's our desire to take care of your business, and that is to represent the good citizens of Belton and to do what's best and right for those concerned. So, Father, we ask that your Spirit would guide us, that all that we think and say and do here would be pleasing to you and accomplish your purpose. May it be so in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is public comments. And before we get to that, I have one public comment. We had a fantastic Bacon Brews and Blues get together here in downtown Belton this weekend. And if you weren't there, You really missed a great time Friday and Saturday. And I want to give a huge shout out to Judy Garrett back there in the back. She's hiding out, but she worked extremely hard bringing this together. We had a great crowd, wonderful music, food, entertainment. Everything went extremely well, and we're very pleased. Also, to the Parks Department, James Grant, the interim director of Parks, appreciate the work that y'all did. And of course, Paul Romer getting the word out to everybody, and some great publicity about the event. But if you weren't there, you really missed a great weekend. Public comments, we do have one, and citizens are always welcome to speak to the council. Tonight, we have our own Candace Griffin and Officer Wayne Cooley.
Good evening, everyone. We're actually here to just formally invite you all to National Night Out. It's next Tuesday, October the 5th. Average parties are usually between 6 and 8 p.m., but we do have some of us that like to go to bed a little earlier. So we're going to start the party at about 5:30 and end at 7:30. So I've given each of you a layout of the 11 parties that we're having here in town. The ones in red are 5:30 to 7:30. All the rest are from 6 to 8. We have a total of 11 parties this year. We're super excited about it. Officer Cooley is the new coordinator for National Night Out. And just as a reminder to everyone, it's just a great time for us to partner with our community and to give crime a going away party. So we just want to formally invite you out, give you a shirt to get the energy going, and we brought a few extras for the crowd as well.
Thank you, Candace. All right. Look forward to the National Night Out. We've always had a really good turnout for that. Thanks to Chief Ellis and his entire crew for putting all that together. The next item on the agenda is a proclamation to honor Manufacturing Day. And I think Cynthia Hernandez is going to introduce the folks, special guests that we have here tonight.
First, it's always hard to follow a party. Thank you, Candace. Thank you for allowing us to invite a few people up. We are really excited about Manufacturing Day, and I have some comments I could offer after the proclamation, if the time permits. But for now, I would like to invite and recognize a few special guests that we have with us today. We have Jason Jones, president of American Spincast. Jason, if you want to just join me up here. We have David Jones, president of Beltec Industries. We have Jeff Washburn, who is director of operations for Stratasys Direct Manufacturing. Keith Alexander, general manager for True. Patrick O'Neill, who is a team member experience manager for True. Stephen Midalis, training coordinator for True. And also with us is Stephanie Ferguson, director of career readiness, CTE for Belton ISD. Stephanie, if you'd like to join us. And Anna Borchardt, director of business retention and expansion for Belton Economic Development. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Paul, get up and get some photographs. Whereas the city of Belton is promoting Manufacturing Day, October 1, 2021, and whereas Manufacturing Day was developed to improve public perception of manufacturing and is supported by thousands of manufacturers nationally as they host students, teachers, parents, job seekers, and other local community members at open houses, as well as digital and virtual events designed to showcase modern manufacturing technology and careers. And whereas it is a national celebration of modern manufacturing designed to inspire the next generation on how they can make a difference through manufacturing, give guidance on how to take first steps in starting a career in modern manufacturing, effectively communicate that manufacturers need the next generation, show students, parents, and educators the opportunities, creativity, and possibility and accomplishment that comes with the career in manufacturing. And whereas the manufacturing industry is a critical component of the state of Texas economy, with over 892,000 people directly employed and a 213.9 billion gross regional product in 2020. And whereas the state of Texas and the city of Belton economic growth depends on the education and vocational opportunities that align with manufacturers' skilled labor needs. And whereas modern manufacturing relies on implementation of innovative technology, provides competitive benefits to employees, and thereby makes manufacturing a worthwhile career choice for residents. And whereas the city of Belton, Texas, supports and joins in this national effort to help America's manufacturers to do what they do best, grow their business, create jobs, and ensure that our communities remain as vibrant tomorrow as they are today. Now, therefore, I, Wayne Carpenter, Mayor of the city of Belton, Texas, do hereby proclaim October 1, 2021 as Manufacturing Day in the city of Belton and encourage all to make themselves aware of our local manufacturers, their products, and their career opportunities to develop a better understanding of their valuable purpose in our community. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the city of Belton, Texas, to be affixed this 28th day of September 2021. We appreciate very much our manufacturers in Belton, and y'all do a great job. And as the proclamation says, y'all are extremely vital to the economy in Belton and Bell County. We do appreciate it. Paul, do you want to get up? All right. Appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Our manufacturers are leaving, and that's okay. They are well aware of what I'm going to say. I just want to offer a couple of brief comments, if that's okay. So Manufacturing Day is an event hosted by the Manufacturing Institute to bring an awareness to modern manufacturing careers to students, teachers, parents, and our community leaders. Our event will be registered with the Manufacturing Institute, and this is made possible because of our partnership with BISD. So we will have Bell Tech Industries, Stratasys Direct Manufacturing, and True present to high school they will present on 2 high school campuses at Belton ISD. Our staff will take the opportunity to celebrate manufacturers all week, and we certainly appreciate the city's partnership in doing this with issuing the proclamation. I just wanted to state that we have 13 manufacturers in Belton, and together they employ over 1,000 people from our region. So in many cases, most of our manufacturers are hiring, and we have several that are in growth mode. So thank you. Thanks for the proclamation.
Thank you,
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Hernandez. We appreciate what you've done. And as I mentioned, it's vitally important to continue to support several of those industries are homegrown. Folks who grew up here, and pick on David Jones, people like that who've grown up in Belton and stayed here. And we certainly want to support each and every one of those folks. Items 4 through 8 on the agenda are considered consent agenda, considered to be routine by the council, and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired, any item may be removed from consent agenda prior to voting at the request of any council member and will be considered separately. Item 4, to consider minutes of the September 14th, 2021 council meeting. Item 5, to consider authorizing the city manager to extend an agreement for visitor center support with the Belton Area Chamber of Commerce for fiscal year 2022. Item 6, to declare the 2 lots at 504 East Avenue R as surplus property and authorize the city manager to sell them to the highest bidder. Item 7, to consider adopting a resolution authorizing the submittal of a grant application through the Economic Development Administration, EDA, American Rescue Plan Act, Economic Adjustment Assistance for right-of-way water, sewer, infrastructures, utilities at the former Rockwool Industries site for shovel-ready development. And item 8, to consider a revised interlocal governmental agreement between the city of Belton and Bell County concerning joint regulation of subdivision plating in Belton's extraterritorial jurisdiction. Anyone wish to pull any of those items? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move we approve items 4 through 8.
Second.
We have a motion to approve items 4 through 8. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Item number 9 in planning and zoning is to hold a public hearing and consider an amendment to an existing plan development commercial highway zoning district to revise the master site plan to incorporate new facilities at the Bell County Justice Center at 2405 South Loop 121, located east of Loop 121 and south on Huey Drive. First, we'll hear a staff report from Planner Tina Moore.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. How's everyone tonight?
Great, thank
Sweet.
you.
Good. All right. Thanks for that introduction. As stated, this property is located off of South Loop 121. Here's the loop and here is Huey. It is also south of Huey Drive. It's the Bell County Justice Complex. Here's a zoomed in view. As you can see, there's been improvements to the site. Most of it happening over the years since 2004 when the property was originally zoned to allow for the county use. As stated, this is zone planned development commercial highway, and it allows for county structures and facilities on the site. The last amendment was to the animal control facility. That's why that layer has the animal control facility. That was the last time the site plan was amended for this lot. The Bell County Justice Center was approved with PD 37 in 2004. As part of that, that approval, there's a requirement that all new additions or improvements come before the city council with an amended site plan. So this is an amendment to the existing site plan that's on site. All right, and this amendment will allow for a future expansion of the county jail. Thank you. Of the county jail administration, detention, and medical services. Again, one of the things that we hope not to have to come back in the future for is for an amendment for any future amendments for a site plan. So any other additions that are proposed in the future, we hope to do that administratively without having to come back to the city council. So here is a master site plan, and this is difficult to see, but there is the existing jail facility over there. They're planning on doing some additions onto that. They're also proposing a diversion center, some additional parking, a short little extension of the roadway. There's future plans. It's not currently funded for the sheriff department to possibly move down here. Here is a better look at what is existing and the renovation and new construction that they're proposing at the site. For part of that, again, the Sheriff's Administration Office is currently not funded, but they're looking at doing a 4-story building that's going to be over 36,000 square feet over there. For the housing, there's different requirements levels that's going to happen. They're going to provide 785 new bedding. That's maximum security. There's going to be 54 mental health beds provided, 192 minimum security housing also provided. They're going to also be a 4-story building. The diversion center, 13,000 square feet, and it's going to be a 1-story. Jail administration, that's going to be in addition to the existing building that's already there. And they're looking at 14,300. Sorry, let me go back. There's also an additional part for bail bonds and visitations. They're renovating part of that and also doing an addition for that. So the renovation part is going to be 9,000. Future addition is going to be 5,200 square feet. There are going to be medical facility. There's already existing. So they're also, again, doing some renovation and adding a new portion of that. For the medical facility, for the new addition is going to be over 11,000 square feet. And for the renovation, over 8,000. Notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet of the property. We did receive one letter of opposition and one that just wanted additional information. That lady was able to attend our planning and zoning meeting last week, and she got the information that she needed. So she was concerned about the roadway, and she was happy to see that extension. With that, the Planning and Zoning Commission at their meeting recommended approval of this zoning change to the site plan. Staff concurs with their recommendation. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
At this time, we'll open the public hearing on this item. Is anyone from the audience or the council, anyone from the audience wish to speak for or against this item? If not, we'll close the public hearing and open it up for council discussion. Questions or comments?
What's a diversion center?
Am I pronouncing it wrong? Diversion, it's actually where they, it's a medical assistant program where they're trying to keep the people from going into the actual housing facility, where it's a program to correct, maybe modify medication that they might need to get them back out.
I had a question on the 4-story. I know the current like Justice Center is, how high is that technically? I know it's like courthouse is only 2 floors, but it's.
It's 2, but the building in the back, I believe, is taller. And
Okay. So we're not going way above with the new 4-story.
correct.
Good architects. I just was, with, it's about to be all homes around there. Didn't feel like we'd want a huge skyscraper in the middle of all the homes, but if it's already, if it's congruent with what it is. It's no problem.
Any other questions or comments? I would entertain a motion.
Move we approve item 9 as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. It passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 10 is to hold a public hearing and consider a zoning change from multifamily residential to a planned development, multiple family residential zoning district on approximately 6.05 acres south of West Avenue O and east of Bell Meadow Drive. And Ms. Moore?
Before I get started, I'd just like to point out the applicant, Steve Bigelow, is here in the audience, and he may be able to answer any questions that you may have that I may not be able to address. For the location of this property, it is south of Interstate 14 off of West Avenue O at the intersection of Bell Meadows Drive. As you can see, this is a vacant undeveloped property. The property is currently zoned multifamily residential. As you can see, the surrounding zoning, there are also additional multifamily. To the east of the property is agricultural use. That's owned by Mr. McNamara. There's residential to the west of the property, and across the street are commercial zone districts. The applicant is proposing 120 units, market rate, 1 and 2 bedroom apartment complexes. The multifamily zoning requirement has a maximum density of 18 units per acre. The applicant is asking for your consideration for a 20 unit per acre. Here is the overall site plan for this site. The applicant is proposing 5 3-story apartments. Included in that is a clubhouse with a swimming pool, pickleball court, and open recreation area. Access to the site will be granted off of West Avenue O and Bell Meadows Drive. The blue shows the fire circulation around the complex. There will be security gates around the complex that will allow a gated entrance for security. For the elevations of this, the applicant is proposing a 4,600 square foot clubhouse. It will consist of 85% masonry, brick stone, and cast stone on the exterior front facade. On the rear facade, they're looking at 67% hardywood and 33% brick facade on the rear elevation. For the apartments itself, the first floor will consist of 100% masonry, and the second and third floor will consist of hardywood. Masonry enclosure, dumpster enclosures are also provided on the site, and it meets the requirement for dumpster enclosure to be provided every 250 feet from the dwelling units. Here is the proposed landscaping. Staff has reviewed this and believe that it complies with our requirements. A more in-depth review of the site plan is required before construction. The future land use map identifies this area for retail and commercial. Again, the zoning is already multifamily and it's consistent with what the present zoning is. Notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet of the property. We did not receive any letters of support or opposition for this item. The Planning and Zoning Commission heard this item at their September meeting, and they recommended approval of the zoning request with the following condition. The use of the property shall conform to the multifamily zoning district. In all respect, the set for the density shall be allowed at 20 dwelling unit per acre for a total of 120 units. The development shall generally conform with the conceptual site plan and elevation plans that were provided. That includes the site development standards, landscape design standards, tree protection, preservation and mitigation standards, building design in compliance with the attached elevation. A replat, which is currently under review, detailed site plan and building construction plans are required for the approval of this. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Okay, thank you, Tina. I'll open the public hearing. Does anyone wish to speak for or against the item? If not, I'll close the public hearing and open it up for council discussion.
I have one question, and I'm not gonna, don't worry, I'm not gonna try to rehash the design guidelines and every aspect of that in this conversation, because this is a good project, but I do have a question. So in our design guidelines, I think we made it to where you could use hardy. Of course, some of that doesn't matter as much now, but the general problem that I see with masonite or then hardy is more so in my opinion, the quality of the paint that's used on those products. Hardy is a very good product, but I think even hardy, if you use a cheap substandard paint, within 5-10 years, it looks pretty bad. And I could show you some housing areas not so far away that are good examples of that, not in Belton. But do we have any kind of standard, or is it even possible to have any kind of standard on a paint type spec, or is that just way too far in the weeds?
We don't currently have a standard. I think that's kind of way far in the weeds, as you say. There are different products that are introduced most of the time. It's just what consists of constant amendments like we currently do, but no, we don't currently have a standard.
Because I mean, and the reason I bring that up is because I really think that's the key problem to some of those products is the paint. And if it's a quality paint, but when you have a big housing area and they use a substandard paint, then that's really what causes that product to fail. So
the challenge, I was just talking to somebody about 2 paint bids they got on a project, an older guy who has a house, and every 10 years it has to get redone. And one painter came in and bid $40,000 to do it. Somebody else came in and bid $6,500 to do it. So they go to the 6,500 because they don't scrape it, they don't caulk it, they water it down, and it looks good for about 3 weeks. And I think the challenge is, even if you mandated a quality paint, you can't mandate a quality job. And it's such an, I hate to say it's an art. I mean, it's painting, right? So it's, it may not paint a picture, but I think that'd be really hard to get into a standard that you can,
especially with the legislature's involvement in design criteria, where they've taken away a lot of authority from us. And we might ask the applicant what the plans are for the paint, get them on the record and let them speak to that. But
well, the point of my question is honestly to encourage the applicant to use a quality paint. And I'm sure the applicant is aware of what not using it.
So, and we own them. Like we're not developing and selling. Our model is to develop and hold them. So it definitely is in our best interest to have a quality paint, and we do quality paint. And a lot of it's just maintaining it. If you go 10 years and you don't paint your hardy plank, that's too long. So you gotta paint it, you gotta repaint it. That's part of save a little bit up front, but you're maintaining it more than you would brick all the way. But we like the diversification in textures and colors. And I mean, we like hardy plank. We like the way it looks. You can do different things with it. And we feel like it adds to the elevations of the buildings. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, and
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to think I'm anti-hardy plank, because I like the look and it does look good, but it's just a question, Sam. I
it's
mean,
good.
and it may be, like I said, it may be way in the weeds, but if there is a way to think about that down the road, some solution to that, because I'm telling you that is the biggest problem with those materials is the paint. It's not so much the product. Well, Masonite maybe has got other issues, but the hardy, that is the only way to really make it look bad, is to not use good paint and to not maintain it.
Appreciate the comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That may be our first pickleball court that I've seen in Belton too. So we're looking forward to seeing your finished
Yeah,
product.
you know, that came in our neighborhood. We have pickleball courts, and you cannot reserve a spot to play. And so it's super, super popular where we're from, and it seems like it's kind of a growing trend. So hopefully people like it. So,
Sir, would you give your name and address for the record, please, ma'am?
yeah, my name is Stephen Bigelow, and my address is 4135 August Lake Court, Fulshire, Texas.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your coming. Look forward to your project.
I had a question regarding the 20 units per acre. Everything in City of Belton is currently 18 units or less. From a public safety standpoint, is the additional units per acre, additional parking, family of 4 with 3 or 4 drivers, like, does that add to an excessive amount of parking and public safety ingress and egress?
Yes, the site was originally looked at for parking to make sure that they meet the minimum requirement. They are required to have, I want to say, 250 parking spaces, and they provided for all of that with 120 units. Egress and ingress, that's been reviewed by the fire department, and it meets the circulation and meets the minimum requirements.
Any other questions or comments? Do I hear a motion?
I move we approve item 10 as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 11 is to hold a public hearing to consider a zoning change from planned development, single-family residential to neighborhood service zoning district on approximately 5.09 acres located on Huey Drive and described as Liberty Valley Phase 1, Block 006, Lot 0001. Ms. Moore, you're a busy lady tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank you for reading all those zeros. As stated, this property is off of Huey Drive. It's on the north side of the roadway, just east of Loop 121. And you guys may recall this. It was recently rezoned to this planned development, PD SF2. All right, this is currently a vacant property. The zoning was recently changed in March, actually, to planned development, single family 2. There was a potential developer that was looking at that property. That deal has fell through, and the original owners are back to rezone that back to neighborhood services. They're requesting that because they feel like the site would be more suitable for office or retail type use. The property is approximately 5 acres, is undeveloped. There are different types of office uses in the area, and also this was previously zoned for office and neighborhood services at one point. The future land use map identifies this area for commercial uses. The proposed use is consistent with the type area 9 that's assigned to this area, and also is consistent with the transitional uses in this area. Notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet. There were no letters of support or opposition for this zoning change. The Planning and Zoning Commission heard this item at their September meeting, and they recommend approval of the zoning change with the following conditions. The use of the property shall conform to the neighborhood service zoning district in all respect. The development of the lot shall conform to all type area 9 design standards as identified in ordinance 2004-17. Section 7.1 of the zoning ordinance, including site development standards, landscape design standards, tree protection, preservation, and mitigation standard. A site plan and building construction plans are required for this lot. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Hearing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 11. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against this item? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and allow council for comment and question.
I make a motion that we approve the zoning change from planned development to neighborhood service as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, item 11 is unanimously approved. Item 12, to hold a public hearing and consider a zoning change from single-family residential 2 with the conservation revitalization overlay to a planned development, single-family residential 2 with the conservation revitalization overlay on approximately 0.25 acres at 519 Surgeon Street, located south of West Avenue D and on the east side of Surgeon Street. And Ms. Moore.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is south of West Avenue D, and here's Surgeon Street. And here is that property on the east side of the street. As you can see, this property has 2 frontage, also fronts Huey Street. As you can see, the front part of that property is developed, the rear half is undeveloped, and the applicant is actually has submitted a replat and to split that into two different lots for an infill project. This property is zoned single family 2 with the CR overlay. All the surrounding properties are also zoned that way. The applicant has submitted in a request for a replat for an infill project on this lot. The CR overlay is also requested to allow for different residential units on here, including the placement of a HUD code manufactured houses. It also allows for multifamily development on the lot. So the zoning code requirements are on one of the columns, and the 2 different lots have different setback requirements that will be requested. So the minimum lot size for single family 2 is 7,500 square feet. They're requesting 5,600. The lot width for single family 2 is 60. There's no change on that. Most of those 2 lots have a 75-foot width. For the depth of the lot, what's required is 100 for lot 3A. And here is the site. 3A, that is 75. For 3B is a little smaller at 74. As you can see, there are existing developments on 3A. That development does not meet the current setback requirement. The front of the house is approximately 12 feet away from the front property line, and the rear of the house is approximately 5 feet away from that new proposed property line. So the applicant is requesting a reduction for the front yard setback to be 12 and the rear yard to be 5. For the new lot, here is the new lot. They're requesting a 15-foot front yard setback, which is consistent with the other developments in this area. And for the new rear yard, they're requesting for a 10-foot. Because of the reduced depth in this area, they're not going to be able to meet that 20-foot requirement. So they're requesting for that change. The sides will not be affected. They're required to be 6 feet away from the sides. The future land use map identifies this area for residential use, and what's being proposed is consistent with the development in this area. The planning is, I'm sorry, missed one slide. Notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet of the property. We received no letters of support or opposition for this zoning change. The Planning and Zoning Commission heard this item at their September meeting and recommended approval of the zoning change, subject to the following conditions. The use of the property shall conform to the single family 2 zoning district in all respect, except a minimum of 5,600 square feet lot is allowed. A minimum of depth of 74 is allowed. A 12-foot front yard setback is allowed for lot 3A. A 5-foot rear yard setback is allowed for 3A. A 15-foot front yard setback is allowed for 3B. A 10-foot rear yard setback is allowed for 3B. A replat, a site plan, and building plans are required before the approval of this development. With that concludes staff presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys have.
All right. At this time, we'll open the public hearing on item 12. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against this proposal? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and open it for council discussion.
it looks like the front yard setbacks are in line with the neighborhood for that area. It looks like there's a couple other lots that the same situation might come up for, big backyard or vacant lot. And so I would assume there would be some additional infill in that area as well. Any reason to be concerned at all about the setbacks?
I don't believe so. Like you said, I just wanted to show the neighborhood. Most of them have gone through the process of putting 2 lots on their lots. Some of them have been platted and some have not. I just recently found out this is not, and we're going to be probably looking at a case for that soon. But most of the development over there is consistent with what's already there. So it seems appropriate.
The only thing that's just a little concerning is those rear yard setbacks. I mean, that's pretty tight. 5 feet.
It is pretty tight, and I just want to point out that the building inspectors have looked at it. It does meet the fire separation. It's subvert constructing and meets the 1 hour fire rated requirements. There's also the detached garage that you can see that's right against that property line. So I asked the building inspector to go out there and look at it. I think the biggest goal is to make sure that new construction is separated.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just saying that's awful tight. I mean,
10-foot porch to porch.
not saying it won't work. And that's really not talking about I mean, are we talking where the structure would be? I mean, because you won't know until you actually get that. And that's what you were just saying, I think, is you would look at how the new structure lays and fits on that.
Correct. We won't really know, but again, that's what the requirement is, that we have that 10-foot separation, that setback. So there are at least be 15 feet between where the patio ends over here versus where the new structure will be over here.
Yeah.
And also, I forgot, the building department requested that they provide a 5-foot maintenance easement because of the proximity to the property line, so they can get access to the garage and the other structures that are close by. So that's also required. So that easement will also not be developed in, to make sure that detached structure will not be closer to that property line.
How wide did you say?
A 5-foot, a 5.
5, okay.
So that would be a 20-foot then?
No, it would still be 10 or 15 between the 2 structures.
Okay.
Well, we've been promoting infill for some time now. It's nice to see some of the older parts of town with some new construction. So anyone else comment or question?
No, it's the right, especially with housing prices, land prices, and inability to annex. I mean, that's the only way cities are going to grow, is to grow smarter. And I think this is a smart thing.
I move we approve agenda item. Oh, public hearing, I'm sorry. We've already done that.
Yeah, we've done that. You're right. You're on track.
I move we approve agenda item number 12 is presented.
Second.
All those in favor, please. In favor? In favor.
Fava beans.
In favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none.
Clarice.
That passes unanimously.
Anonymously.
Yeah, no,
I don't know what I voted on that one.
yeah, what did we put in the water tonight?
Here. I'm not going to drink that. It must have been left over from the weekend.
Must have been from the brew part of the BBB. Item 13, to consider an amended final plat for West Canyon Trails Phase 3 subdivision located east of Loop 121 and south of Layla Lane. And this does not require a public hearing. Ms. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a replat, basically to prepare for the addition of Phase 4 of the West Canyon Trails neighborhood. This replat only affects small amount of lots over here. Again, it's just to prepare for the connection to Phase 4. They're pulling through, here we go. They're actually going to amend it so Sarah Drive can extend to the new area. Also part of that, there is a 15-foot temporary access easement that was provided on the plat with the connection of Layla to the Ridge at Bell Meadows subdivision that will no longer be needed. So they're requesting permission to abandon that. So So part of it will revert back to lot 25 and the other part will be parcel that will be owned and maintained by the homeowners association in that area. So here's a look at what's being proposed for phase 4. So that would just provide that connection into that phase. That will also extend out the utilities and the street into that area. The applicant has already submitted in plans and has gotten approval to start the construction for Layla Lane to be extended. So once that is approved and accepted by the city, the temporary access easement that goes to Loop 121 can be voided at that time. All right, so most of this hasn't changed. You guys seen this before. There are 8-inch water and sewer lines in that subdivision, and that 8-inch line will run on Sarah into the new phase. There are 3 entrances that's required for this subdivision because it has over 101 lots in that area. So what is currently existing, the first one is off of Allen Trail. That's the main entrance to this. The second one that was approved is a temporary connection to Long Creek Lane. And the third one that was approved is the temporary emergency access one. With this plat, that temporary access connection can go away with the connection of Layla Lane to the east. Unfortunately, the one on Long Creek will not be able to go away till Layla Lane is connected to the west to South Loop 121. Streets in this area. Layla Lane is a minor collector with 60 feet of right of way with 60 feet of right of way, 37 feet of pavement with curb and gutter. There's a 5-foot wide sidewalk on both sides of the road. There is a 1-foot non-access easement along Layla to limit driveway connections to the collector road. The rest of the streets in this area are local and they have 50 foot of right of way with 31 feet pavement with curb and gutter. On-site detention is provided on a privately owned parcel B. This is owned and maintained by the HOA. There is fencing required around the pond, and the fence on Layla is required to be wood fence with a capped top rail. You may recall there's a variance for the parkland fees for this. The developer is providing a private park that consists of 0.8 acres, and there's going to be sidewalk, benches, and landscape provided for that. That would be owned by the HOA and maintained by the HOA. The Planning and Zoning Commission heard this at their September 21st meeting and recommended approval of the replat. Staff concurs with their recommendation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys have. And the applicant, Lena Chate, is here.
Thank you, Tina. Council have any questions or discussion? Does the applicant wish to say anything, or you're good? Want to give you the opportunity. Any questions or discussion from council? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I move we approve agenda item number 13.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you for coming. Look forward to your project. Item 14, the long-awaited sidewalk, trails, and shared use paths master plan and amendments to section 503 of the Belton subdivision ordinance relating to the requirements of sidewalks. Tina gets a rest, Mr. Van Til.
Thank you very much.
I think that's the fastest we've ever gone through, what, 6 P and Z with public hearings? Bravo.
That's what you call, good case management and a very, very professional staff, for sure.
And a good P and Z.
And a good P and Z, absolutely. Anyway, thank you. We'll talk again about the sidewalk policies. I'm going to leave my mask on. I was exposed over the weekend. I know you have a little one at the house, so I don't want to accidentally do something to you. So today's discussion is to continue on with what we started last time, and then hopefully take action on the proposed plan and amendments to the ordinance that we have been talking about as well. So just to recap on what we've been talking about, The ordinance that is proposed adopts and implements the plan, which is with a map that showing the future system of pathways, excuse me. We identify sidewalk requirements on both sides of all arterials and major collectors, internal and one side of minor collectors. One side of arterials and collectors, if on the periphery of a development, unless an alternative plan is proposed for the area that meets the objectives of the plan. And some exceptions are proposed in industrial areas, historical areas, and for small affordable housing projects. We're suggesting that the design criteria that is in the current ordinance be taken out because that's already in the Public Works Design Manual. And I feel like there's no reason to duplicate that information, primarily because if you change one, you have to remember to do the other, and that causes problems. The proposed ordinance provides an option for the city to participate in sidewalks, for instance, in oversizing, much like if we were doing a water and sewer job or road job. It provides the opportunity to pay a fee in lieu of construction, the cost per square yard, which we'd like to put in the fees ordinance if everything goes through nicely, or the engineer's estimate, whichever is greater. Variances may be granted by the city council in instances where there's just an impasse between the city staff and the developer. So it's an opportunity to kind of, break the tie, so to speak. For ETJ projects, it's an opportunity to implement the plan. The maintenance would be shifted to an HOA or a similar entity, or the option to pay the fee in lieu of is there also. So on September the 14th, as you remember, we had a public hearing. We had neighbors from the Red Rock and Red River Drive neighborhoods, and also from North Beale Street. And they discussed the plan and their concerns for the plan. And so after the meeting and after our conversations, we reacted in the following ways. For the Red Rock and River Place drives, you may recall we had a red line going through the neighborhood and they didn't want it, so we took it out. For North Beale, we analyzed that and talked about that quite a bit. And we're recommending to keep that project in the plan as a future sidewalk connectivity plan. And as I go through, and you probably see it right there, we've kind of reclassified, not kind of, we've reclassified some of the future sidewalk projects, in two ways. But let me touch on this. This other is, we wanted to also react to the conversations of the public and what the council was thinking. Also, I hope I got this right, but just the overall purpose of the plan. What's the purpose of the plan? We needed to articulate that a little better. Just because those folks showed up, we felt like there was probably a disconnect between what we were trying to do and what they were perceiving us doing. And so we made an effort to clarify the purpose of the plan, which identified that neighborhood connectivity and then also guidance for future development. And so we have that verbiage in there that clarifies that. Hopefully that clarifies that. Hopefully you've had a chance to study that verbiage in your packet, and hopefully you'll agree. The other thing that we wanted to do is kind of further define in reaction to some of the comments and maybe further define, some of the types of projects that we have so that we can distinguish between, okay, here's what we think ought to happen in these future areas that may be handled by private development. Here are some of the projects that are kind of in the neighborhoods that may be more publicly driven. And so we came up with some terminology. The two are future sidewalk extensions, which includes a system of sidewalk trails and a shared use path in future developed areas. So that's really kind of like, that's the development area for the private sector, And then we have this blue line that we see on the plan, and we labeled it future sidewalk connectivity, which includes systems that are achievable in existing developed areas. So we're kind of infilling the sidewalks in those areas right there. And so when we were looking at North Beale, we felt like it was a good blue project. And so we left it on the plan, and hopefully you'll agree, because it provides a good section of connectivity in that area of the neighborhood. Now, let me also say that when that project or any of the blue projects come to fruition, of course, it has to be studied and engineered. There needs to be public input and things like that. So it's not like we're going to throw it in a CIP and off we go. There needs to be public input, which is the, I would say, the normal way of doing things. Because as we mentioned at the last time, we have several other projects. We just went into the neighborhood and said, this is what we're thinking. What do you think? And we got good feedback on most of them. So we can't say that about every single project that is on the plan, but we'll find out when it's time to prioritize those projects, right? The last item that I want to touch on very briefly is the feedback from the county regarding the maintenance of the sidewalk. We reached out to the county engineer, and he confirmed with us that we're not going to maintain sidewalks and so on and so forth. But he does support, from his perspective, the way that we're approaching the way through the HOA or a similar entity or fee in lieu of or what have you, that kind of thing. So I hope that answers your questions about that. So I put in some pictures. We got to kind of cleaning things up a little bit. So we've got picture of the quadrant 1, 2, or 3, and 4 that you may be familiar with looking at. This one you can see, I am pretty sure, and look at there, that you can see the Red Rock area. In this area, oh wait, I don't know. Well, all right, maybe I can draw it on here. All right, I don't want this technology to stymie what I'm trying to tell you, but okay, what do I do now? Okay. Ooh, okay, there we go. Thank you, Tina. We know where the talent is in the department. Okay, I made some circles around an area. Hopefully you saw me do it and you saw the area. So it's like magic. You just don't know. But anyway, so you see that's where we made the change on it, and we've got lines that you may be familiar with and the rest of it. So we have quadrant 2 and 3 right here. Much the same. We reacted, we took the plan, made some changes in terms of the minor collectors and things like that. So one side of the street, that sort of thing. And here's the final quadrant that I wanted to show you. This map, by the way, as you know, is on the city's website. So you can zoom in, look out, change the layers and all that kind of stuff. All very interactive and hopefully very helpful for all those that are interested in seeing that. And of course, we want that to be very easy to analyze for folks that are looking at developing in the community. So our recommendation at this particular point is we recommend approve the proposed ordinance adopting the sidewalk, trails, and shared use paths plan and amendments to the subdivision ordinance. And I want to thank you ahead of time for your cooperation and patience with working on this project, as I know it's been a long road. And if you have any questions, we'll certainly try to answer those.
Thank you, Mr. Mantilla. And we appreciate all the work that's gone into this, because I know this has been a long trail that we've gone down here, and appreciate all the work put into it. Questions and comments from council members?
Bob, can you elaborate a little bit on the county stance again? And you mentioned fee in lieu in the ETJ for sidewalks.
Yes, sir. Their opinion is that they won't maintain a sidewalk. They won't maintain a trail. It's going to be somebody else's responsibility. So we're proposing that somebody does maintain, whether it's an HOA, whether it's a MUD or some other entity that's created to take care of those things. The fee in lieu of will come will come to the city.
So if there's a development in the ETJ that doesn't have an HOA or mud and it's out on a county road somewhere, we would charge a fee in lieu for sidewalks.
If that facility requires a sidewalk, yes. Or that's the option, It's
Well,
either.
what's the trigger, I guess, is another way of asking what he's asking. What's the trigger that, what kind of development are we talking about that's going to require sidewalks? Because like, I think out on 1670, there's some there's some little, I don't know if you'd call them ranchettes, but a big lot subdivision that's kind of one way in, one way out in some cases. Is a development like that going to require and trigger a sidewalk? Because it won't really be that type of development's not really conducive to sidewalks. It doesn't need sidewalks for the most part because of the size of the lot. So I guess there's some clarity on what requires a sidewalk.
Yeah, it's obviously difficult to answer because you don't know how many lots or, where they're located, how close they are. Let's say 1670, that would be a place where we'd want to see sidewalks out there. So we would say, we'd want to have some system, in and through there. And they could come up with a proposal, and in my mind, I'm thinking of enough, lots that would generate that. If maybe one or two or something like that, it may be a different story, and the sizes and things like that. But I'm saying, yes, we would talk about them either providing the sidewalk or providing some plan for providing some plan for maintenance or to pay the fee off.
And the reality in all of these are general guidelines. And then even with the general guidelines applied, they come back down to, council action, and it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. And it's hard to really understand all the combinations that could come forward at this point. Because, one of the problems we're going to get into, especially with several MUDs, where you now are dumping significant number of people. I know we've talked about just sidewalks on 6th, which is in the city limits. And we're like, well, people don't use sidewalk on that side. Well, I almost had my camera and took pictures of 3 people walking in the grass in areas that weren't safe for sidewalks because we don't have them. So I think that traffic patterns, and including human traffic patterns, will really start to inform this gray area, because we'll have to work with the county at some point.
Sure.
Because they're going to have to secure high density populations in the county that they've not had to do in the past.
Sure. Plat review is what's going to generate, that's going to be the trigger for us to evaluate it. The plan that you see before you shows the desired locations, the preferred locations for those. It's not every single street in the ETJ, but it's certainly some. And again, we don't know what's going to happen out there. We don't know if they're going to be half-acre lots or 3-acre lots or something. Certainly that will help determine whether a sidewalk is needed, but we won't know that until we get the subdivision plat. We don't know if the water and sewer will provide for urban development that will warrant a sidewalk or not just yet. But to have it on the plan, it gives us the opportunity, us, staff and council, P&Z and council, to evaluate the need to try to end up with a system. We've got a good start on a system now, existing and proposed, existing and funded. And then this distinction that we're talking about that Bob came up with, extension for future development and connectivity, what we might be able to achieve inside the city limits, I think is a good breakout of how we might accomplish that. So again, it's a planning document. It's a guide. And ultimately the plat review, which will come to y'all, will help decide exactly what we end up with.
Well, that's all I'm saying is I want to make sure there's flexibility, which I think has been the spirit of what you're trying to do here, to add a little flexibility on some of these areas. But when you get into ETJ, it gets a lot more touchy about, that's why people build in the county and not in the city a lot of times. So, there's going to be some development in the ETJ that is not going to, where a sidewalk's not going to make sense. So I just want to make sure from a staff level, it can always come back to us, and, at some point we may say, hey, we're sick of all these things coming back to us, so we need to revisit our sidewalk
Exactly.
ordinance again. I mean, that's all entirely possible, but just so the spirit of this is that we're building in some flexibility to where, maybe it doesn't have to come back to us to tell somebody that, no, that doesn't make sense. You don't need to put a sidewalk in the ETJ for that development, and you don't need to pay us a fee in lieu of, because it makes no sense. So as long as that's the spirit of what we're trying to do, then it makes sense. I'm just cautioning on the ETJ piece because that can get pretty.
It's
touchy.
good, in my opinion, it's good to have these, even at the fee in lieu of, because then it makes somebody stop and think about what's happening and why. I was driving some rural roads today, and there's this one rural road right outside of, that's a horrible thing to say. There's outside of Temple, where it's just an old road, and they built really nice $500,000 homes, like from me to you from the road. And the road's just little bitty. It needs to be widened. And the kids are out riding their little bicycle on that because there's 4 trucks or cars that go by it a day. The road's like 2 to 3 miles long, probably 2,000 of undeveloped land in the middle. And when that develops in high density, those little kids that are riding around aren't going to be able to ride on the road. And anyway, it's just people in the county aren't always planning where the way the city is. And at least this gives us a planning tool to bring them to the table to talk about, just to use some wisdom. So,
well, I don't know that we're disagreeing or agreeing what we're saying here, but because I'm being fairly agreeable, I just, we just need to look at those things carefully, because in his example, he's right.
That's a good one. River Farms is a good example. That's outside the city limits.
Absolutely.
But we were able to, through the mud, achieve a pedestrian path on one side. And then when the other side comes in, we'll, make that evaluation. And other places where urban development occurs outside the city limits, we'll have that opportunity to evaluate it.
I do hope we approach it from a service friendly aspect,
sure.
and not be adamant about a fee in lieu or, our way or the highway. We gotta have a sidewalk in front of your development. And I remember there was a recent development on Elmore King that was out there. One of the sidewalks, there was a sidewalk required. It just didn't make a lot of sense. So hopefully we don't hear from angry individuals who have to pay a fee in lieu or don't have an option. Was my concern.
It's just kind of the point of this whole exercise, I think, is to get a little more clarity and a little more flexibility, because we kept having all these discussions about sidewalks pop up. So I just, I know we're not going to get it perfect, and we'll change it again, but it's just kind of the whole point of what we're doing.
I think you got it
Absolutely.
good enough to move on. I would ask that you would look at 24th. We've got a blue line on 24th for connectivity feature, but we don't have a connection between 24th and Beale down to Park.
Go back to that map, Bob.
So
Northeast
I would
quadrant.
think we would want to connect that down to the extension of Heritage Park.
Did that road not get a sidewalk when we did it?
Does not have sidewalks on either side.
24th over to Park Road.
Map dates. That's our main park connectivity.
I think this is,
AKA.
okay, yes, that's good. I think,
When we built that street, there's still room between the street that we built, the extension, or we built 24th down to the golf course. I would think at some point the city might sell those as lots, and we would hope the developer would build sidewalks. I don't know.
Then we should put red or blue lines, whichever one's appropriate there, I think, because we
Okay.
definitely would want those sidewalks to extend down to
Yep.
into the park, I think.
I was
Thank
looking
you,
at the
Craig. I
map.
think that's a great idea.
Okay, yes, I think so too. I was going to say, we're looking at the map. I can't show you, very clearly. But our intent was to extend the system down into, down 24th into the park. So we may have just out
Just add a
mapped it.
line.
Yeah, we'll just add it. Good, thank you.
That doesn't mean we can't pass this right now, right?
Correct.
Any other questions or
Unless you wanna
comments? for-
Table it for that line.
Let's know.
We'll have it fixed lickety split. Let me tell
Any
you.
other questions or comments for Mr. Van Til? I appreciate all the work, and I think we've reduced some requirements. We've made it easier for developers in some couple of instances. We have that flexibility, especially out in the ETJ, because we know legislature has made it impossible, at least in the foreseeable future, to annex any of those things, and the county does not want that responsibility, and they're not going to maintain those areas. You know, River Farms is one thing, but some of those other small rural developments, I just can't see the need personally to do that. But saying all that, the flexibility and the overall umbrella of this, I think is very well done, and I appreciate the work spent on it. Any other?
Thank you.
If not, I would entertain a motion.
With the addition of the line down 24th to Park, I move that we approve this item as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Craig, thank you for that catch. Bob, thank you. And there being no,
5 years later.
there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.